Hello, hello, good evening, welcome. If you can hear us, can you give us a quick wave? And if you can see us, give us a thumbs up. Even better, great to see you. Very good evening, welcome along. It's lovely to be here in our homes, isn't it? We could be in the Holiday Inn in Newport Pagnell or the Mercure in Watford or something, but no, we're at home and we're going to enjoy a great evening together with a couple of absolutely incredible speakers that I know have already given great value to so many of the people on here. I can see there's quite a lot of leaders in the room from various companies, so you will already know what a great evening you have in front of you. It's going to make a real difference to your business. Now, just to tell you a couple of little bits, we're going to have a break kind of halfway through in about probably just over an hour or so. So we'll have a little comfort break then. And we are going to have a chat room as such, like the Zoom chat, but we will switch it off to start with. And then at various points, Richard or Andrea might invite us to switch that on so that we can all share comments or whatever, or give feedback to them. Keep that in mind. Now, obviously, this evening is sponsored by our good pals at Knowledge is King, who are always there at the back of the room in all of those events that we have up and down the UK and all over Europe. But of course, they haven't been able to do that the last 15 months or so. So they have kept us entertained in our living rooms with various webinars. And it's a pleasure to once again be given the chance to, introduce this one. You can probably hear my dogs fighting right now. They've been really quiet for about 3 hours, but just as we go live, they decide it's time for a good scrap. My name is Wes Linden, for those I haven't met before. I'm based in London, and it's a real pleasure to be with you this evening. But that's Kobe, and the other one's Bree, and they're also pleased to be here too. Over to Paolo from Knowledge is King, who would like to say a few words. So Paolo, over to you.
Hi Wes, hi everyone. Great to see you all. And I just wanted to say on behalf of Knowledge is King, a big thank you for supporting us once again. So a big thank you to all of you, and enjoy the training tonight.
Well, thank you, Paolo. And I'm going to say I'm always banging this drum within our company that when you're going to buy personal development books or audios or whatever, please always check Knowledge is King first. I know it's easy to go onto Amazon if you want washing tablets or pegs for the laundry or whatever, but Knowledge is King support us all the time when we can be at events, so it's great for us to support them too. So to our kind of main guests this evening. Now, of course, everyone loves the sound of the word yes, and they hate no. But quite sure where that's coming from. That wasn't part of the. Is that you, Paolo? I think that's Paolo. That's Paolo's ringtone. Everyone loves the sound of the word yes. They hate the word no. But what if we could achieve every target, if we could hit every income goal, if we could reach every personal dream by simply learning to hear no more often? And that's exactly what this evening's speakers believe. Richard Fenton and Andrea Waltz are the authors of the best-selling book, Go for No, and their message has transformed people's lives all over the globe. Now they're going to teach us some of the mindset and strategies to use Go for No to improve every area of your business and your life. And I can tell you, I first had the pleasure of meeting them actually at a golf club in Binfield in Berkshire about 13 or 14 years ago, and was absolutely mesmerized by what they shared, and was delighted a year or two later when my company got them involved to be the keynote speakers at our major convention. And they shared messages that day that I tell you still today, people talk about, they still use, and they still penetrate through our business. So I know we're in for a real treat this evening. So please welcome virtually Richard and Andrea.
Hey, Wes, thank you so much. And Paulo, we are so glad to be with everybody tonight. We have got so many cool things to share. And this is not just us on camera, but we have audio visual things that we want to share here. So I'm going to pull up our slides, and we are going to get started. And Richard and I are going to kind of go back and forth between the two of us. So I'm going to let Richard kick it off with a story.
Absolutely. So anyway, great to see you all, or should I say to be seen. It's wonderful to be here. So it's October of 2003, and Andrea and I are huddled over the fax machine. Now, I don't know if any of you remember what a fax machine is. This is a machine they used to have when dinosaurs were roaming the planet. I mean, we're talking, ages ago, before technology took us to where we are today. And we are huddled over the fax machine, and we are waiting for an offer from a major New York publisher to publish our book. Now, to fully understand the story here, we've got to go back actually a couple years earlier. Andrea and I had moved to Los Angeles, and we decided that we were going to give a couple years to see if we could break into the movie industry. We both love to write, which is one of the reasons why we wrote Go for No. And we thought this is a great opportunity to see if we have the talent, the skills to actually break in and write screenplays. So we moved to Los Angeles, and we make this decision that we come up with a list of the top 100 agencies in Los Angeles. And we said, let's approach each of them 10 times each. And what that meant was 100 agencies times 10, it's going to be 1,000 approaches. And we thought maybe if we could get 1,000 no's, if we could get 10 agencies to tell us no 10 times each, maybe somewhere in there would be the magical yes. Maybe we would stumble across the yes. Well, interestingly, the 15th query we sent out, we got a phone call from an agency, and they loved the screenplay we had written. They wanted to meet with us. We got together at a country club, and we were signed. So we thought, oh my God, this is amazing. The agent says, oh yeah, your screenplay is so good. We are going to get it sold. We're going to get it sold right away. They put it out for bid, and they put it out for bid on September 12th, which was the day after 9/11. So this is 2001. And I will just tell you, plain and simple, nothing was happening. And the last thing anybody wanted was a thriller, which is what we had written. And so nothing happened with the screenplay, but something miraculous did happen. The agent in Hollywood said, I have an agent in New York who's a book agent, and you guys wrote this book called Go for No. He said, I think we should send it to him. So we sent him the copy of Go for No. The agent in New York reads it, and he says, oh my God, your book is so good. Right? Now, we've heard this before. Your book is so good. It's absolutely your work. Oh yeah, I'm going to put this out for bid. And they put it out for bid, and lo and behold, almost immediately, one of the biggest agencies in New York says, we want to publish your book. And I'm just going to be honest with you here. Andrea and I thought that this was the magical moment of our lives. We thought this is the moment where we get discovered. This is where we become the New York Times bestsellers. This is where everything works out for us. Well, they put the bid out, and here comes this, major publisher. They say, we want to publish your book, and they're going to fax us the proposal on Monday morning. So that's why we're huddled over the fax machine. We are huddled over the fax machine because we are waiting for the offer. And 9 o'clock, we get over the fax machine, and 10 o'clock, there's still no offer. And 10:30, 11 o'clock, 11:30, by noon, we realized there was something wrong. So we called the agent, and we said, hey, we didn't receive the offer. What's up? He said, hang on, I'll give them a call. I'll call you right back. So he calls and comes back, and then calls us back and says, I got some bad news. He says, the publisher has decided to pull the offer at the last moment. And we said, what? I don't understand. Why? They said, well, your platform is just a little too small. You haven't sold quite enough books. They just don't think that Go for No is going to sell. As a matter of fact, what they told us was they didn't feel that Go for No would ever sell 5,000 copies. And we had a real big decision to make. Now, keep in mind, we're crushed, right? We just lost what we thought was our dream. And we have a decision to make. And the decision is, should we just throw in the towel and not go forward because somebody has just told us our book isn't good enough? Or do we make the decision to stick with it? And as you can probably guess, we made the decision to stick with it. So for the next 2 years, we really worked hard. We sent out copies, we did everything we could in marketing, and the book was doing okay, but it really wasn't setting the world on fire. And we were kind of a little upset, a little at wit's end. So we go to a book marketing conference and we bring copies of Go for No with us. And we're going to give the copies away now because they're just not selling as well as we think. And we brought 20 copies with, I'd given away 19 of them. And I said to Andrea, I said, I got one copy left. We'll just take this back with us. And she said, no, that guy in front of you, he said he was in sales. Give it to him. So let me see if I got the slide here that I can bring up for you. So, we give him the book and he says, okay, fine. He throws it in his briefcase. And Andrea, you're going to help me here because I don't know how to make the slides go forward. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit challenged when it comes to a little bit of the technology.
Are you technologically challenged? What happened to the slides?
I don't know.
They're literally gone.
Paulo, there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
There it is. There it is. All right.
Ah,
Follow.
there we are.
All right.
Okay, I had to blame somebody. So I give this book, and the guy's name is Tom Schaff. Give him the book. 2 days later, the phone rings, and it's Tom. And he says, hey, I'm the guy you gave that book to at the conference. I said, oh, yeah. And he goes, I just finished reading it. He said, it is absolutely one of the best sales books I've ever read. I said, wow, thanks. That's fantastic. He said, but I've got to tell you something else. It's got one of the worst covers in the history of publishing. He said, if you will change the cover, he said, I'll take 5,000 copies. Now, what's fascinating is 5,000 copies was the amount that Simon & Schuster, oops, I wasn't supposed to say their name. Sorry, Simon & Schuster. That was the amount they said we would never sell. And now one person is offering to take 5,000 copies in one order. Now, I just have to show you the cover here because this will explain a little bit. This will explain a little bit of why. Sorry, folks, we're having a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
But we'll show you. Here we go. Here's the original cover. And after we redesigned it for Tom, this was the new cover. Now, here's a very important lesson. And I'm telling you this story for a particular reason. The answer is you never know why people are telling you no until somebody tells you why they're telling you no. And we had one person who explained that he wasn't buying the book because he didn't like the cover. And you know what? In retrospect, it wasn't a great cover. So we redesigned the cover. From that moment, the book Go for No started selling like mad. Today, we have sold almost 500,000 copies of the book that our publisher said would never sell 5,000 copies. Now, the question is, when exactly should we have given up on our book? And it's really the same thing with a company. It's the same thing with a product. It's the same thing with an opportunity. When exactly should you give up? You give up when the first person tells you no, or maybe the 10th person tells you no, maybe the 100th person. Do you know when it is the time to give up? Well, in our particular situation, we believed in our book so much, we refused to give up. And because we refused to give up, the book eventually became a success. We feel that that is the exact same formula that works for almost any business, any product, or any opportunity.
Right, you are, Richard. It's back to me. I'm going to tell you all another Go for No story. And the reason why we like to tell these stories is because oftentimes, people ask, they say, so do you guys hear no? Do you guys get a lot of no's? And the reality is, to this day, we get no. We got no through the entire process of the book. And to this day, we talk to customers, prospects, clients, and yeah, we still hear the word no a lot. And we should hear the word no to the very end if we're always stretching out of our comfort zone and stretching out of our potential, if you will. So, but how we really got started in business and how we became entrepreneurs is really a Go for No story as well. We launched our speaking and training company. We had no idea what we were doing. Our clients were large Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 organizations. And I was literally picking up the phone finding the telephone number for the company and cold calling these organizations, introducing myself and trying to qualify and figure out if they were interested in hiring us to come in and speak for them. So that was one great strategy. But then we did hear that there was going to be an event in San Francisco, all the way, we were living in Los Angeles, so it was all the way kind of north of us, very expensive. We were going to have to travel up to San Francisco. We were going to have to buy tickets to get into this big expo. But what we knew was that our prospects were there. Now, I don't know who can relate to this, but you know how sometimes there's an event that you want to attend, or there's maybe a trade show or something you can get involved in and you think, gosh, is it worth it? And we never really know, do we? But there's power in showing up. There's power in sometimes just saying, I don't know what's going to come of this, but staying home and not putting ourselves out there isn't doing any good, right? So after doing all of this cold calling and not really getting anywhere, we decided, in addition to that, we need to meet people. We need to network. We've got to get out and tell our story. So we went ahead and we bought tickets to the American Society for Training and Development event in San Francisco. We flew up to this event. We were networking, and as luck would have it, there was a special event just for vendors and suppliers, who we were, and the companies that hired them. So we're walking around and we're kind of networking, and networking meetings can be awkward, right? Sometimes they're just awkward, and we just, you do the best you can. So I'm walking around this event hall, and I see across the room this woman's name tag, and it says Deborah Maston, and she's with a company called JCPenney, which was a big retailer in America, huge at the time. They had like almost 1,000 stores, I think. And I realized that this was the reason why we came to the event, to meet someone like her. But I had two choices. I had two things pop into my head at that moment. And the first thing that popped into my head was, oh, you need to walk up and introduce yourself to this woman at this big company. And the second thought I had was, oh, who are you kidding? Whatever you do not walk up and approach this woman. You are going to make a fool out of yourself, right? This is not going to go well. Like, don't do it. And then I said, well, we spent all of this money. We came all of this way. What are we doing here? So I decided I needed to approach her. So I went up, and without the greatest introduction in the world, I just said, hi, my name is Andrea Waltz. We had recently launched a training company, and I handed her a copy of a little book that Richard and I had written, a book previous to Go for No. This woman was a powerhouse executive. You know how some people, it could be a leader, or maybe an executive you met, or just someone who's really successful and you just look up to them. This woman was just a powerhouse. The funny thing was, she was probably a foot shorter than me. So I'm like, and I'm not that tall either, but I'm towering over her, but still, I feel like I am 7 years old. And I'm handing, this copy of this book and kind of asking her, almost feeling like, would you take a look at what I have? And she was just this executive, and she said, yes, let me take a look. And she flipped through the book, and I learned a very important selling skill that I will impart to all of you right now. This is whenever you hand anyone anything and you are with them in person. I know we don't do a lot of that right now, but we will very soon. You're with them in person, just be quiet and let that person digest what it is you've just handed them, right? Whether it's a product to look at and they're reading the ingredients or whatever, just silence is okay. So I'm standing there and I'm being silent, and I'm letting her peruse, and she says, this woman, Deborah, she says, this looks really interesting. Do you all do distance learning? And I said, of course we do distance learning. And she said, great, call me, here's my business card, call me on Monday, maybe we can work together. And I'm thrilled, and I'm running around the event hall now trying to find Richard, and I meet up with him and I say, you're not gonna believe it. I talked to this woman, she's the head of human resources at JCPenney, this big company, and she says our materials look interesting, and she asked if we do distance learning, and he goes, wait, what's distance learning? And I said, oh, I have no idea, but we'll find out. So this is the fake it till you make it thing, right? I said, I have no idea. Well, we found out what it was. Distance learning, way back, this goes way back, is basically what we do today. It's virtual training. And that's what we did. They just happen to have fabulous studios with that look almost like you'd see in like a news station, right? Big cameras and everything. And they broadcast out training to all of their locations all over America. But anyway, the point of this story is that we did end up getting hired. We did end up getting yes. And my presentation to her, my introduction was not perfect. I did not feel equipped. I did not feel prepared. It wasn't great, right? It wasn't like the perfect presentation, but I did it anyway. And I knew that I couldn't wait for courage to somehow arise in me, that I had to act even though I was scared and even though I didn't feel really ready. And that is so much of what Go for No is all about. That we're going to teach you some really interesting Go for No strategies this evening, and some mindsets and some ways to think. But the thing I want to impart to all of you right now is that in order to apply what we're going to teach, you can't wait for that courage to arise and you feel ready and you feel perfect and you don't feel awkward and you feel invincible. I didn't feel any of those things. We feel not ready most of the time, right? And at every stage along the way, we don't really feel prepared. But the courage comes the more that you practice it. And that's what we learned with Deborah. And the other thing I learned from approaching her was that was a life-changing meeting. And sometimes it just takes that one yes to change everything. But in doing so, you put yourself in a position to hear no. She could have just said, yeah, I don't know, this doesn't look interesting, and thrown it back at me and walked away. Totally could have happened. In fact, I probably somewhere in the recesses of my mind figured that was going to happen. So I look back oftentimes and I say, where would we be if I had not approached her? Because getting that organization, that one yes, was the thing that gave us the confidence to get back on the phone, start cold calling again, and say, hey, we're working with this client. We have this client. What would have happened if I didn't approach her? Where would we be today? And I think we probably wouldn't have even had this business, and it wouldn't have led to us finally writing Go for No, which was one of the things that we were teaching. And it wouldn't have led to all of these things that we've experienced over the last 20 years. Was that one really weird, awkward moment of me approaching this woman and doing it despite feeling not good enough, not ready, and despite the fear. So those are kind of two Go for No stories. For any of you wondering if we have insecurities, imperfections, heck yeah, but we go through it anyway. So what I want to do next is kind of pose a couple questions. I want to pose a couple questions to you about rejection. So let's start with, and by the way, if you happen to have your handouts, now these are something that Paulo sent out a couple days ago. If you have them, great. If you do not have them, it is okay. There is nothing on these handouts that you are not going to see on the screen. And if you're taking notes, you'll just take notes, and you can also get access to the handouts later. So, but we have a couple things, and what I want to do is talk a little bit about rejection and talk about how it is affecting you right now. Now that we've kind of set the stage with a couple of Go for No stories. So signs that rejection is affecting your business. We see this, we've been teaching this idea of Go for No now for over 20 years. And these are probably the number 1 through whatever that is, 7 things that we see. And one is, you only call or reach out to people who you think will say yes. And that is really a problem because that's really limiting, right? I mean, if you are psychic and you know who's going to say yes, then you're doing really well. And so, but most of us, right, we're not psychic. We don't know who's going to say yes, but we think that we do. So we cut out everybody who could say no to us. And so that is a huge sign that rejection is affecting your business, where you only call or reach out to people who you really think is a guaranteed yes. Next thing, you get depressed after a no and you stop your sales and prospecting activity. You get depressed. Rejection is, and we're going to talk about the emotional reaction to rejection. If we didn't, we would be doing you a great disservice, because rejection is a real thing, right? It's the elephant in the room. So we're going to talk about our emotions around this. But if you get depressed around no and then you stop or you slow down, it's also a huge issue. You procrastinate and do everything else but make calls, right? We've all been there with the procrastination. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get this ready and I'm going to get that ready. And then eventually I'll call this person back, or I'll send out those, messages on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. You would come up with all of these things. There's always so much to do before we actually do something that feels like selling. You get anxious or nervous about picking up the phone or messaging somebody, even emailing somebody. You avoid situations where you might fail. We're going to talk about failure and its relationship to success, and how failure and rejection work together. But if you feel like, gosh, I don't want to fail, that's a huge sign and it's affecting your business. Sometimes it can be affecting your life. You feel like, and this is a really big one, you fear upsetting someone when you're selling. You feel like you're going to be pushy. You feel like people are going to think you're being aggressive. You have all of these feelings like, gosh, this is they're not going to like me, right? And then finally, you just feel like you're not having any more fun because you're putting stress and pressure and weight on your shoulders. You're pressuring yourself to get that yes. You're stressed out if you don't get those yeses, or you get no's, or people aren't even giving you a yes or a no. You're just getting a lot of nothing. And then that just doesn't become fun, right? That makes you feel like just giving up. So these are really important issues. And so when you think about that as an issue, the question is, and this is a question that we have on your handout here, is what's my current tolerance for hearing no? How much does it affect me? So the question is it possible to become someone who doesn't fear rejection? Is that even possible? So let's address that right now. And the answer is yes, absolutely. We have done Go for No training, speaking, teaching this concept, like I said, for 20 years. And we have seen so many people make so much progress. Now, it doesn't mean that you become invincible, right? It's not like you have a magical shield and rejection doesn't phase you at all, because there's only so much that we can do to alleviate those feelings. We are biologically wired to not be rejected. We're wired to not get thrown out of the herd, to not get thrown out of the tribe, right? You get thrown out of the tribe a few hundred years ago, a few thousand years ago, you're on your own. That's not good. So your brain is always protecting you, and your brain is very good at protecting you. So your brain wants to definitely make sure that you never, get rejected. So you can't get rid of some of that gut ache and that almost painful feeling of rejection, because that is wired into your DNA. So where does that leave us? Well, we can hack our mind though, can't we? We can work on our mindset around rejection, so that even though we might have some physical pain over it and some actual aches in our gut, because that's how we're wired, we can say, but wait a minute, I'm going to think differently. I'm going to use my mind, which my mind can change, and I'm going to think differently. That is something that we can do. So we could open the chat just for maybe a minute. Wes may be able to do that. And if not, we can just move forward. But if you have your handouts, just take a couple seconds and do this self-scoring reality check. What is my current tolerance for hearing no? How much does it affect me? So when you think about on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being affecting you greatly, right? 10 being affecting you greatly, and 1 not affecting you at all. Just let's write that number down, because we're going to, I'm gonna have you do something with that number later. And I want you to write it down also, because after this training and also after a couple more weeks, I want you to go back and look at what the number was, and hopefully we can get your number down. So just think about that. Think about what your tolerance is now. How much does it affect you? Like, do you feel, if you're on this training tonight, maybe it affects you somewhat, right? So maybe you're a 5, but is it a great deal? Is it an 8, 9, 10, or are you on the lower end? Are you 2 or 3? So write that down, make sure you write that down. And I am going to turn this over to Richard, because he's going to tell you a couple more stories that really are the foundation for Go for No.
So where did the Go for No concept come from? And I will tell you that, and some of you may have read the book, I don't know. There's a story in the book, and the story is something that actually happened to me. That is where the Go for No concept got its roots. I had been working in the car business for about 5 years, working for my father in sales, and I failed miserably. I mean, it was just a disaster. I decided to quit the car business, and I moved all the way from Chicago to Los Angeles, which is about 2,000 miles away. And I did it to get away from the car business and to get away from my father's sales legend shadow. And interestingly, the first job I took when I got to LA was in sales, but this time it wasn't in car sales. I took a job selling suits for a living, working for a menswear retailer. And I was really disappointed and shocked when I discovered that I was failing there too. I thought that my problem was the car business. Well, the problem wasn't the car business. The problem was my fear of failure and rejection. And so here I am now in this new job. I'm failing again, and I'm scared to death that they're going to fire me. And that's when the district manager, a man by the name of Harold, was coming to visit the store. And I thought, maybe if I could impress Harold on this store visit, maybe they'd give me a little more time to improve my sales. Well, Harold comes into the store. We had donuts and coffee. The store opened up at 10 o'clock. And the first customer walks in, and I walk up to the first customer and I say, "Hi, how can I help you?" Right? The way almost everybody greets people in retail. And the customer says, "I need to buy an entire wardrobe of clothing." And I thought, oh, this is it. This is my magical moment. I'm going to show Harold what a great salesperson I can be. And for the next half hour, I took care of this man, and he bought an entire wardrobe of clothing. I mean, he bought a suit, sport coat, slacks, shirts, ties, shoes, socks, belts, underwear, a collar pin, a pocket square. I mean, it was an entire wardrobe of clothing. Came to $1,100, which for this time, this is back in 1980, was a really good sale. And I thought, wow, Harold's going to really be impressed. And Harold doesn't say anything to me. And so eventually I kind of worked my way over to Harold, and he eventually threw me a bone. He said, "Hey, kid," he said, "you know, that was a really great sale." And I said, "Yeah, did you see that? That was $1,100. He goes, "Yep, great sale." And then Harold would proceed to ask me the question that would change the course of my life. He said, "Out of curiosity, Richard," he said, "what did that customer say no to?" And I have to tell you, it really threw me. It got me a little bit upset. I said, "What do you mean? What did he say no to? Were you not watching the sale I just had? That customer, he just bought $1,100 worth of merchandise. He bought a sport coat, slacks, shirts." I started running through the whole list of everything the customer had bought. And Harold said, whoa, wait, time out. He said, "I'm not asking you what he said yes to. He said, the yeses have already been determined. He goes, you just take the sales check, you look at everything that's listed there, everything he bought, those are the yeses. He said, the question I'm asking you, Richard, is what did he say no to? And I stopped and I thought about it, and I realized why he asked the question, because you see, the customer hadn't said no to anything. Every single thing I showed that man, he said yes to. I said, Harold, the customer didn't say no to anything. And then Harold asked me the other really great question. He said, well, if he didn't say no to anything, then how did you know he was done? Well, I'm going to tell you how I knew he was done. I was a young guy. I wasn't making a lot of money. I had never gone into a menswear store and bought a whole wardrobe of clothing at one time. The idea of spending $1,000 on a single trip into a clothing store, that was such an outrageous amount for me at that time that I couldn't imagine that anybody would walk in and spend $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000. That was outside of my comprehension. Harold said, you know, I watched you sell, Richard, and he said, you're not half bad. He said, but your fear of the word no is going to kill you. And then he added the final little words, which really kind of saved the day. He said, but I think if you can just get over that, he said, I think you could become one of the great ones. Well, it was interesting because I went into work that morning thinking they were going to fire me. And I went home that night, 2 letters from greatness. N-O, no. I thought maybe I could just get people to say no to me more often. And, you know, Harold kind of shared something with me because he made me realize, he said, you know, the way most people think about sales and about failure rejection, they think that you're in the middle and then you've got failure on one end and success on the other end. And everybody thinks that it's your job to move towards success. It's your job to get people to say yes to you. And of course, in a way it is, but what they get wrong is they think they're supposed to do that while simultaneously avoiding failure and avoiding rejection and trying to have no one say no to them. Well, Harold made me realize that there was a different model, a second model that was more effective. Harold said, Richard, he said, you're on one end. He said, failure, rejection, having people say no to you is in the middle. He said, the success that you want so desperately is on the far end of the model. He said, you don't wake up every day saying, I've got to try to avoid failure and rejection. He said, you need to wake up every day and say, how can I get people to reject me more? How can I go into work in my place of business, if you're a salesperson, if you're selling anything, whether it's a product, a service, an opportunity, you're an actor trying to get a part in a movie, it doesn't matter what it is. The question is, how can I get more people to say no to me with the faith and the understanding that if you can gather enough no's, the yeses will happen automatically. Now, the question is, did it work? Well, yes, it did work. Did I become an award-winning salesperson overnight? No, it was not an overnight deal. It took me a whole year, but eventually I became an award-winning salesperson with that company. And why? Because one person stopped to explain to me that I was operating with the wrong model of failure and success in my head. One person got me to understand that if I would just increase my failure rate, the successes would come, they would come automatically, and they would come with less stress. I can never, ever, ever express my gratitude to the degree that I should for the moment that Harold took to change my life.
All right, Richard, fantastic lead in to me talking about your no quotient, your NQ. It's far more important than your IQ. We know that in your businesses, there's a lot of product knowledge, right? Oftentimes there's special ingredients that you need to know. You need to know everything about the comp plan and the business opportunity and all of the background things, right? So we think, oh, we have to have all of this knowledge. But what's really important is your no quotient. It's the number of times you are willing to hear no and keep going. So just want to throw this out for people. You can go to goforno.com. On the homepage, there's a little red badge, and you'll see it. It says take your no quotient quiz. don't do it now. Don't do it now. Don't do it right now. But you can go there, and there's a free quiz for you to take and find out what your no quotient is. It's a great test to do in combination with thinking about what number you are in terms of how rejection is affecting you now. This quiz is also a great tool to help you, because really what we want to do is we want to see transformation for you, right? It's great. I mean, Knowledge is King provides this amazing training, and what they want is not just for you to get this amazing training and have it kind of not really absorb and just bounce back off. They want you to transform. That's what we want to see. And so thinking about where you are now, taking the quiz will really help you see what happens 60 or 90 days later when you put these things in action. And also, just to remind everybody who hopefully also signed up for our sister program with the guys who wrote the consistency chain, that will also be instrumental and absolutely instrumental in putting Go for No into action. So hopefully everybody did the double package and got both, because that's going to be huge as well. So I'm going to take you through something that we call the 5 failure levels. Again, this is on your handout. It's something that you can follow along with. And the reason we do this is just kind of give you a bird's eye view of what we're going to be covering in terms of strategy and where we're all starting. Because when we think about where we're starting now, we are starting at the bottom. Level 1 is where everybody begins. We have the ability to fail, right? It's where we all start. Children have the ability to fail 100%. The key is we then move to the next level, which is the willingness to fail. And that is, you see little kids do this, right? They, 1 minute they're crawling and the next minute they're trying to stand up and they're trying to walk. This is the willingness to fail, and they're willing to do it, and they're willing to fall over and hit their head on the coffee table. Probably don't enjoy it much, but they're willing to do it, thank goodness, right? And that's where hopefully we want to get all of you, even tonight at the end of this training. We want to move you from just ability, that's great, to willingness, to I'm willing to go for no. But here's the magic piece, and this is the wantingness to fail. This is where you really want to hear no more often. You believe in the message. You believe that failure and success are not opposites, as Richard just described. They are opposite sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. If you want to get more no's, if you want to get more yeses in your life, you have to get more no's. Getting more no's in your business, showing more products and services is going to get you more yeses. So this is that wantingness level. Then you move to the next level, which is failing bigger and faster. And we jumped into this early on in our business. We jumped right into failing big, right? We were calling on these Fortune 500 companies. We're meeting with these executives. We're willing to fail big because we know that if we can fail big, if we can hear a big potential no from, an executive, that also could be a big potential yes. And that's exactly what it was. Right? I went for a big no, ended up getting a big yes. So failing bigger and faster can 5 times your results, and failing exponentially. And that's what Knowledge is King provides. That's what your leaders provide in your organization is, hey, they know if a leader knows if they can get everybody going for no, if they can go for no, if they can get everybody on the team going for no, then as a group, as a team, everybody can fail together, everybody can get more no's together, and the multiplication of that might not be 5 times. That could be a 10x. That could be a 20x with everybody going for no. In fact, I heard from she's become a friend of mine who is here in the US with a direct selling company, and her team has just hit a huge landmark. She just reached personal sales of 1 million. Her team is doing phenomenal because she trains Go for No with her team relentlessly. And so that's what great team leaders do to get everybody failing exponentially. So I'm going to turn it over to Richard. He's going to talk about a core concept.
Can you get rid of that?
Oh, let's see if I can. There we
There you
go.
go. Well, listen, we've kind of, we've laid the groundwork for you now, right? We're not just telling you stories to tell you stories. They all have a purpose here, and it's to lay the groundwork that if you can increase your failure rate, you can increase your success. Now what we want to do is we kind of want to dig into some very specific strategies, if you will, for how you do that, and a little bit of its mindset, a little bit of its strategy. And one of the core Go for No concepts that we love to share, and this one's a little bit different because it's going to revolve around basketball. And I know basketball is not quite as big in Great Britain as it is in the United States, but it's pretty popular in Europe now. So I'm sure you have enough knowledge of it. And this revolves around basketball. And the core Go for No concept is this. It's quantity first, quality second. Quantity first, quality second. So what do I mean? Well, Andrea and I are big basketball fans. We follow the NBA here in the United States. We used to live in Portland, Oregon, which is a great basketball town. Not a great basketball team right now, but a great basketball town. Right now, we live in Orlando, Florida. The team is the Orlando Magic, and I will tell you also, they're not a very good team either. But years ago, as we mentioned, we lived in Los Angeles. And when we lived in Los Angeles, the Lakers were the team in the NBA. They were hot. They had Phil Jackson as the coach and Shaquille O'Neal at center and Kobe Bryant. It was an amazing team. And they were the best of the best. There was only one problem with the Lakers, though. And the problem was that Shaquille O'Neal, for all of his power and his prowess as being the most dominant center in the league, was he had one very big issue. And his weakness was free throw shooting. Now, free throw shooting is where you get fouled. Somebody hits you in the hand or whatever, and you're allowed to go to the free throw, and you're allowed to take a free throw, a shot, or sometimes two shots. And Shaquille O'Neal was the worst free throw shooter in the league. Shaquille O'Neal's free throw shooting percentage was down at around 50%. Now, the best people in the league were at 90, above average 80, average was 70. Shaquille O'Neal was at 50%. His free throw shooting percentage was so horrible. And what happened was the other teams realized something. They said, you know, we don't want to let Shaquille O'Neal dunk on us. We don't want to let him get layups. If he gets the ball anywhere near the basket, you foul him. You have to hit him. They called it hacking. They said, hack-a-shack, right? They said, it's the hack-a-shack defense. You hit Shaquille O'Neal and you make him take 2 free throws 15 feet away from the basket, his worst shot, not his best shot. And there was a big problem with this, though. And the problem is that Shaquille O'Neal got fouled so many times in a game that he would end up on the free throw line taking free throws, and he would get 40 free throws a game. Now, even though his free throw shooting percentage was down at 40%, which is really, really bad, you have to imagine that if he got fouled and he took 40 shots, even at 40% success rate, he was getting 16 points a game from the free throw line. Why? Because it was the quantity of shots that mattered more than the quality of shots. The quality of shots is important. Of course, you want to do as good as you can in anything you do, but the quantity of shots is what matters most. So let's see here if I can actually, there we go. I went back too far. There we go. So I started writing a series of letters to the Los Angeles Lakers, begging them to let me come down and help Shaquille O'Neal shoot free throws. And I wrote a letter and they didn't write me back. I wrote a second letter, they didn't write me back. I wrote a third letter, a fourth letter. I sent this series of letters for 2 months and no response at all. Finally, at the end of 2 months, I got a letter back from them. I couldn't believe it. I got a letter. The letter wasn't what I'd hoped for. The letter was a letter that basically said, "Dear Mr. Fenton, thank you very much for writing about Shaquille O'Neal's free throw shooting. The Lakers team, Phil Jackson, the coaches all understand it's an issue, but we want you to know that we are taking complete control of the situation and we are going to correct it. Well, they didn't correct it. It actually went down. His free throw shooting percentage went down. Here's the thing that I learned though, and this is really a very, very important point. And that is that Shaquille O'Neal's free throw shooting percentage wasn't a problem, as I mentioned. It was actually an okay thing because they let him shoot so many free throws. Here's an example. I want you to see this here. Here's an article from USA Today. And it says, just getting to the line has benefits. Many an NBA game has been won or lost at the free throw line, but in the playoffs, it really doesn't matter what you do once you get there, just as long as you get there. USA Today examined team statistics to find the key to winning, and the answer brings good news for Shaquille O'Neal because getting to the free throw line is the most important factor. In other words, the quantity of shots was the most important factor. And free throw percentage, how many of them you made, was the least important factor. In other words, the quality of those shots. The team that got to the free throw line the most won 75% of the time. It said O'Neal was shooting a dismal 41.2% from the free throw line, but he led all players in getting there. And that's what's so miraculous. What's so miraculous is that he didn't have to be the best. He just had to shoot more than anybody else. And the other teams made it possible for him to shoot. There's an issue that we all have in the world of sales, and that issue is that we want to be perfect. We want our sales presentation to be perfect. Sometimes we practice our sales presentation for hours and hours. You know, we sit in front of the mirror and we deliver the program. We make a list of all the objections that anybody could throw at us. And we don't think that we're ready until we know how to handle anything that could come our way. And the reality is the worst stuttering, stumbling, unfilled, screwed up sales presentation in the world has a chance to get a yes and has a chance to create magic. While the best presentation that you could imagine doing will go nowhere if you don't deliver it. The quantity of your presentations is far more important than the quality. Now, are we saying that you should intentionally go out and do a bad job? No, of course not. If you can get quantity and quality working hand in hand, that's the perfect situation to be in. But don't worry about perfection. Just increase the quantity of times that you present your product, your service, the opportunity, whatever it happens to be, to as many prospects as possible, and have faith that the people who want it will want it, and those who don't won't. You'll increase and you'll have a lot more no's, but you're also going to, through that process, get a tremendous more yeses.
Okay, so we're going to talk about setting some goals, and then we're going to take a short break, but we really want to make sure that we cover this before the break. And I want to get some answers from all of you as well. This is really important because I want to hear from everybody on how you're going to implement this from a numbers standpoint. So now that you have Richard's presentation on how important quantity is. So one of the things that we teach is to set what we call no goals. And that is to set a goal for the number of no's that you are going to hear in a given day, week, or month. And when you think about setting goals, you think about the idea that we all set traditional yes goals, right? We all set goals for the number of people that we want to add to our team. We set goals for the sales that we want to make. Sometimes it's dollars or it's a unit. It's like just a general volume number, right? And I know that because you're here at this training, that you are a good goal setter, a great goal setter, right? You're a great goal setter. And so you're used to setting all these traditional yes goals. Well, to fully implement Go for No, what we're going to suggest is that you set a no goal. And that is a number of no's that you're going to hear in a given period. So for example, when we launched our company, we we're doing okay for the first couple of years. After we had gotten that big client, right? We got that big yes. We started cold calling and we were following up with people, and we were doing okay. We had a yes goal of about 4 yeses per month. That was our goal. And then, but like all of you, we're entrepreneurs, right? No one's setting a quota for us. We could blow our number out of the water. So how we came up with the 4 yeses, well, I'll tell you. We came up with the 4 yeses because that was the number that we were comfortable making. And that should hopefully be an important lesson to you right there. That was a number that we were comfortable making, that we kind of could wrap our minds around, okay, this is how much we should bring in. But then after a while, we said, well, wait a minute, what if instead of just setting and getting these 4 yeses, we set a no goal to get 100 no's, to get 100 companies to say no to us each month. No, we don't want your training. No, we don't want to buy books. No, no, no. And when we started implementing that, and we would get a yes here or there, we would get a yes, we just said, forget the yeses, forget worrying about the yeses. Let's focus on getting 100 no's this month. We had more business than we knew what to do with because we weren't letting that yes goal hold us back. That's the insidious thing about yes goals, that sometimes yes goals limit our performance. Why? Because as we're doing our daily day-to-day and we're working through, and all of a sudden we go, we're halfway through the month and it's like, wow, we've got 4 yeses. That was the goal, right? Kind of like if you've ever had a situation where you had 2 or 3 team members, you unexpectedly added them and you said, that's my goal. So what do I have to do for the rest of the month? The answer is nothing. You hit the goal. You're done for the month. You've got the 3 team members. Why would you add 5 or 6? You're done. Again, insidious thing about yes goals. So we said, let's get 100 no's. And what happened as a result was we had more business than we knew what to do with. So Wes, this is the interactive part of our program, because we really, what I want to know from people is, what is your no goal? So let's not focus on a month. Let's not focus on a month. Let's not focus on a day. Let's focus on 1 week. So just think about this for a minute. What could you set as your no goal for next week? And I'll give you just a couple parameters, and then hopefully we can open the chat, because I would love to see what some numbers are. And this is your number. And it can be based on any go for no moment in your business. It could be based on meeting people and having them say no to watching a video. It could be messaging people and following up with current customers. Do they want to try a new product? It could be anything, right? There's so many opportunities you have in your business to hear no. Just think about all of the moments that you have with one person from beginning to end, from you saying, hey, are you open to looking at a business opportunity? Or hey, have you ever thought about trying X product? You think about all of the opportunities throughout the process, all these no's. So think about, what could a no goal be for you in 1 week? Based on that, and hopefully you're thinking a little bigger here. So Wes, can we open the chat? And oops, I'm really bad with clicking on this slide thing. And get everybody to share their number, because I would really love to get people's number.
Yeah, it's open, Andrea.
Okay.
So yeah, lots of comments coming in already.
Okay, they're coming in already. Okay, 50, 60, I see, 25, 60, 50 a week as someone speaks to 50 to 60 people. A lot of 50s, 30 no's. 6, good. 4, 3, 7, 8. Okay. These were great numbers. And here's the thing with this. Here's the really important thing with this. A couple things. And I just wanted to get some numbers. There is no bad or wrong no goal number. If your no goal is 3, and it's because you're working your business part-time and you feel like that's the realistic no goal for you, fine. There's no wrong number. You don't have to start with 100 like we did. I saw a lot of 50s, a lot of 60s, all kinds of various amounts. What's really important to this is that the number is just out of your comfort zone. So I'm going to assume the 3s and the 7s and stuff is out of your comfort zone and based on your level of activity, right? Because think about all those opportunities you have to get no's. There are some businesses or some companies. My friend who I have many friends in direct sales, skincare company, she gets 22 no's off of me, off of one phone conversation. And I'm not kidding. 22, easily she gets 22 no's from me. She's like, what about this? You've never tried this. You need to reorder that. She's suggesting all these things, this, right? There's all these things. And so that's one conversation. So we don't set your no goal, you set your no goal. There is no wrong number. There is no bad number. The only thing that you need to remember is commit to that. And then next week, take what you've learned on this training and apply it next week and say, next week, my goal is to hit that go for my no number. My goal is to get the 3. I'm going to get the 50. And then do everything that you can to execute on those go for no moments, to put yourself in the situations where you're having those conversations, you're sending the videos, you're doing the things, right? In order to get those no's. That is your obligation now that you've set this no goal. So I appreciate you guys kind of playing along with that and throwing out these numbers. We're gonna take a break and I'm gonna throw it to Wes. Also, I just wanted to remind everybody, we are going to have time for Q&A later. Richard and I will squeeze in together here on the camera. We're gonna have time for Q&A. So oftentimes there's some questions about no goals. So if you have something that you feel like, gosh, I really wanna know a little bit more about, like, make sure that I'm doing it correctly or whatever, write that question down and we will see if we can get to that at the end of the program. We definitely will have time for Q&A. So Wes, with that, I'm gonna throw it over to you for break time.
Great. Well, Andrea, Richard, thank you for a great first half. Loads of brilliant stories that have, really can stick in the mind and some real actionable content there as well. So thank you so much for a great start. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, which of course in network marketing, kind of direct selling world, is actually 12 minutes. So we'll start again at 20 past. And I would just say, as Andrea said, they're going to take some questions at the end. Maybe we'll funnel them through the chat room. Maybe we'll ask them direct. I'm not sure, and we'll see how we got the most. But please make sure you have some lined up, because so many times when we open up questions, people go, "Oh, I don't want to speak." So don't miss out on this great opportunity.
Thank you, Wes. I looked through the entire chat. I reviewed everyone's no goal. So great numbers. Don't let me down. And more importantly, don't let yourself down, right? So please take those numbers and make sure that you execute on them. All right, so what we want to talk about now is the emotional side of this. Remember in the beginning, I talked in some detail about how we can't completely solve the kind of the fear of rejection, the distaste of rejection, because we're biologically wired to not want to have it happen. So I just want to pose this question, kind of going back to that idea. When you hear the word no, what does that no mean to you? How do you respond internally in your thoughts? What do you say to yourself? What are the things that you immediately say? Are you supportive to yourself, or do you berate yourself and say, oh, you did such a bad job? Or, and you just make yourself feel bad, like somehow you can hate your way into being okay with rejection. That does not work, right? And also externally in your actions, what do you do when you get a no or a series of no's? Do you slow down? And we said that was a really common sign that rejection is affecting your business. This is a great formula. It's E plus R equals O. We learned this from Jack Canfield. The event, which is getting the no, plus your response, how you react, determines your outcome. So you get the no, your response immediately is to think, I'm doing a bad job, I'm doing something wrong, this didn't work. And the outcome then is you fear rejection more, it's even more frustrating. And so this idea is about changing your response, changing your emotional reaction. And instead of seeing that you are believing that you're off the path, remember that model that we went through with Richard, the failure success model, right? You are not in the middle. You are on one end, the failure, rejection. It's part of the process. It's part of business. It's part of it for everybody, for us, for you. We all go through it. The yeses are on the other side. Controlling your response allows you to get off of the emotional roller coaster. And the emotional roller coaster is that thing that we put ourselves on, right? We get a couple yeses, we're feeling great, we're high on the roller coaster, but we get a couple no's and we're down and depressed. And then we find ourselves riding it. We're up and then we're down and we're up and then we're down on this emotional roller coaster. And how does it feel to ride an emotional roller coaster after a couple times? It's exhausting. So it's no wonder that we get exhausted getting ourselves on this emotional roller coaster. It's no wonder that that happens. So we need to step off that emotional roller coaster to be most effective. The idea is that your reaction to both yes and no should be of equal emotional intensity, where we have the super negative reaction on one side, the super positive reaction on the other. We get the yes, right? And that we want to be in this neutral zone of, hey, the most important thing I can do is take action. Because the reality is, you could be the most persuasive, influential person ever, and you could still get a no. We can't control what other people decide, what they're going to do, right? We can't control that. The only thing that we can control is our own behavior. And our own behavior means sharing the message, right? Telling our story, telling the story of what our business has been like for us, what our products and services do. That's what we can control. And so if we just focus on what you can control, and stay in that neutral zone to where you don't allow yourself to berate or to, say bad things about yourself, and you don't have to over celebrate and be like, oh, yes is so great, no is so horrible. It's staying in that neutral zone. It takes some practice. We've all been taught and trained something very different, right? We all celebrate yes. We have parties for the yeses. And we feel embarrassed or ashamed of the no's. We feel like we have to, we can't share the no's. The no's are embarrassing. The no's are something that we shouldn't celebrate. This is how we have been as a society, global, not America, not just the UK, not just Africa, not just Asia, the whole world, global. We hear from people in India, we hear from people in South America, we hear from people in Australia. Everyone has this exact same issue, this exact same feeling. How is that then? How is that possible? It is because we're wired this way, and this is what we're all taught. So we want to stay in the neutral zone. Fun mantra also from Jack Canfield, some will, SW stands for some will, so some won't, so what, someone's waiting. It's a great little message to remind yourself to think of in those moments when you are getting a no, or sometimes a series of no. Someone's waiting. There's always somebody waiting for their life to change. We don't often know who that person is because we're too busy being fearful and worrying about no's. We need to make sure that We get those no's, and then we quickly move on to that someone's waiting, telling our story to someone who doesn't have enough money, doesn't have a lot of time, doesn't know what to do with their life. They feel lost, and you could have something to share with them that could solve all of their problems, right? They're just waiting for you to have the courage to maybe bring that up and to share with them. And so let's just take a little self-scoring. I'll let you do this on your own if you have your notepad in front of you, if you have, and remember the reason why we're doing this, because we want to see transformation, we want to see change. So if you have your handouts, you can use your handout. Rate your current ability to remain in the neutral zone. And you have this on your handout. As I said, circle 1 to 10 on this handout. You'll see the line at the bottom of page 2 is 10. 10 would be you are fabulous. You're in the neutral zone. You have you don't ride the emotional roller coaster at all. You're always in the neutral zone. You're always totally fine emotionally when it comes to yes and no. Or maybe you're in the middle, or if you're a 1, you really need to work on it. You really feel very bad when you get a no. You beat yourself up. You put yourself down. You're all of those things, right? Very negative about it. So write that down so that you can come back to this in a couple months and see from where you've come, right? That's our goal, is transformation. Okay, I think you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised once you put these things in action. Okay, so let's turn this back over to Richard. He's going to talk to you about.
I'm going to talk to you about a core go for no concept, which is to never make decisions for other people in terms of how much they're willing to spend with you, or quite frankly, if they're willing to buy it all. But in particular, we're going to talk about how much they're willing to spend. Let's do a little exercise here. I'm going to name a couple things, and I want you to be thinking about what the answers are. For you, I'm going to do mine in dollars because I still have trouble doing the translation in pounds, so I'm not even going to try. You'll probably be doing yours in pounds, which is fine. And so let's just start with this one. And if you want to write these numbers in your handouts, feel free. If not, you just have them in your head. So what's a lot of money to spend on dinner for 2 people, special occasion, great restaurant, appetizer, bottle of wine if you want, dessert? What's the number that you have that pops into your head for what's a lot of money to spend for dinner for 2 people? Get a number that's set in your head. What is your number? Now, sometimes when we do this in live exercises, live workshops, we're in a room with everybody, and we'll go around the table and we'll have everybody share their numbers. And I have to tell you, it's kind of funny because the range of the numbers that people give us, it's crazy. We have people who will say, $100 or $150, and sometimes we get, $200. In New York City, I mean, the restaurants are so expensive there, and if you get the right group, we've had people say $400, $500. Well, on the other end of the spectrum, we have people who say $50. So we have this wide range between $50 and $500. It's a simple single question, right? What's a lot of money to spend on dinner for 2 people? And yet people can be off by a factor of 10 in relationship to what their numbers are. So that's kind of interesting to us. Let's talk about another one here. What's a lot of money to spend on a home entertainment system? Now you might use the term stereo. I think that's kind of the old-fashioned term. Home entertainment system, the Bose speakers, the woofer, the tweeter, all of this stuff, a surround sound, however you want to define it. What's a lot of money to spend on a home entertainment system? And get that number kind of set in your head here. And if you want to, go ahead and write it down if you'd like. And let me tell you what numbers we normally hear from people. When we ask this question, we get people who will tell us $500, $1,000. Every now and then somebody will say $5,000. Some pretty high numbers. And every now and then somebody will give us like a really, really super low number, you know, down around $100. So if you think from $100 to $5,000, that's again a really, really big wide range. Because what's a lot to spend on dinner? The answer to that question is very personal. And it depends on what you think is a lot to spend. And what's a lot to spend on a home entertainment system? Once again, extremely personal. Now, why did we pick these two things to ask you about? Well, I need to share with you a little bit about Andrea and I. I think Paulo and Wes already know this about us, but we love dining out in great restaurants, in particular, steakhouses. We are, quite frankly, steakhouse fanatics. We have made it a goal of ours to eat in every great steakhouse in North America. And when I say that, I don't mean it just like as a throwaway funny line. I mean, seriously, we have a list of every restaurant we've eaten in over the last 22 years. We have a list of all the restaurants we haven't gotten to yet. And we have a goal to get into every great steakhouse in North America because we absolutely love steak. Now, I shouldn't just say we love steak. We love everything about the entire experience. Now, I'm not saying this in any way, shape, or form to brag, because the reality is our number might be lower than some of your numbers. When Andrea and I finally get to one of these restaurants that we've had on our list sometimes for 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, long periods of time, it is not that uncommon for us to spend $300 on dinner. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It's easy to do these days. It's just easy. You know, you have a couple appetizers, you get a halfway decent bottle of wine, you get a Kobe bone-in ribeye steak, have dessert, and bam, you know, before you know it, you're at $300. Now, we don't mind spending the money because you see, that's our thing. It's what we love doing. But we have a friend in Chicago by the name of Jay, who every time that Jay hears what we've spent on a dinner out, he literally flips out. He says, "What, $300 on dinner? What do you mean? How is that possible? $300, he says, you know, you can get a Big Mac in Chicago for $2.79. I could have gotten 306 Big Macs. I mean, he will sit and do the math in his head. And because the thing is, food's not his thing. He doesn't care all that much for eating out. But you see, for us, it is our thing. Here's where it gets most interesting. You see, Andrea and I, we love music, but we listen through music through headphones most of the time. But Jay loves the surround system. He loves the surround sound home entertainment system. And Jay has a $10,000 Bose stereo system in his living room. And Andrea and I, until fairly recently, had a $99 Sony boombox that still had sand on it from the last time we took it to the beach. Not because we don't care about music, but because music is just not as important to us. So the question is really this. If Jay took a job as the maitre d', a wait person, whatever, in a great restaurant, do you think it might be a little bit of a challenge for him to recommend the $150 bottle of Silver Oak Cabernet, right? Or the $85 steak? Yeah, probably be a challenge. And if Andrea and I took a job in the Bose store, do you think it might be a little bit of a challenge for us to recommend the $5,000 or the $10,000 home entertainment system? Yeah, you bet that it would be. The point is this: what we think is a lot of money to spend on something is irrelevant. What Jay thinks is a lot to spend on dinner doesn't matter. If we're going to be successful in recommending a product or service, we have to get what we think is a lot to spend on something out of the way, because what we think is a lot to spend on something does not matter. Let me give you one more example here. It's kind of funny. It's a funny example. Question is, what's a lot to spend on a cake? Just a cake. One day we're sitting in the office and Andrea tells me, she goes, "Hey, I got the new Norm Thompson catalog. There's a cake in here I want to order." I said, "Fine, go ahead, order it." She says, "Well, don't you want to know how much it costs first?" And I'm thinking, how much could it cost, right? It's a cake. She goes, "Well, just take a guess." Now, I have to tell you, for me personally, a cake is worth about $10. That's what my answer would have been. But she's making such a big deal over it. I thought $20. And I thought, no, 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 I'm going to go high. So I said $35. She says, higher. I said, really? $50. She says, no, higher. I said, $75. She goes, no, higher. I said, oh, please don't tell me there's somebody out there who's charging $100 for a cake. And she said, keep going. Well, I have to tell you, it was quite a cake. I'm going to show you a picture of the cake here. You'll probably like this. This is a cake from a, let's see, I'll read you the description because it's kind of funny. This is from artist turned baker, Polly Schoonmaker. It says, whimsical rosebuds, zany dots, and silly squares dance merrily over this topsy-turvy cake. That's 10-inch in diameter. We are not talking about a big cake, folks. We are talking about a pretty darn small cake. Serves 14 people. And then it says here, the price, you ready? $180. $180 for the 10-inch cake. And then it says in very small print, it says, sorry, no gift wrap. I mean, for $180, I want the cake, I want it gift wrapped, and I'd like somebody to come to my house and polish my car. I mean, that's ridiculous. $180 for a cake, right? Crazy. But someone is buying these cakes. I don't know who they are, but apparently there are people out there who think that $180 for a cake is okay. They think that's normal. Well, after a few years of traveling around, our little brochure here started to fall apart. So I called the Norm Thompson catalog company. I wanted to get a new catalog. And I said, hey, would you be so kind as to send me a replacement brochure that has that Polly Schoonmaker cake on page 26? And the young lady said, oh, I'm sorry, sir. She said, we no longer carry that cake. And I said, really? She goes, yeah, we don't carry that cake anymore. She said, we have a replacement cake. Okay, it's now on the cover. It's $200. Someone's spending $200 on a 10-inch cake. I don't know who they are, but the point is, if I was a cake salesperson, I'd have to get that out of my mind because it doesn't matter. What I think is a lot to spend on something, what you think is a lot to spend on something does not matter. The only thing that matters is what the customer thinks. What the customer thinks is the only thing that matters.
Absolutely. So we have another little exercise we want you guys to do here. And that is, we want you to think about your numbers. We want you to think about the numbers that, let me show you the cake there. The numbers that challenge you. And you can write this down in your handout. We asked you the questions here. So do a little self-scoring reality check. What is your definition of a big sale? What's your definition of a big sale? We all have the numbers, right? So what is that? What are a lot of customers to add in 1 month? We all have the number, right? We all know what we think a lot of customers to add is. What about team members? What are a lot of team members for you to add in 1 month? What is that number to you? And we've got some numbers coming in. This is good, good. And then finally, and this is a really interesting one, how many people have you prejudged regarding their interest in joining the company, right? What we find is that the excuses that we use for people to not know about the business opportunity are often the exact reasons why they need to hear about the business opportunity. Your neighbor, too busy, has lots of kids, husband sick, could never do a business, but maybe knowing about the business opportunity could help her solve all of those problems, right? But what we do is, as Richard said, we prejudge, we use the idea that she's got all these things, there's all these reasons, she couldn't do it, she wouldn't be successful. But who's that helping? Is that helping her be successful and solve her money problem and her time problem and get her time back with her kids and give her husbands a break? Or does that help us in not having to get a no? Who really benefits from this? That's what we have to think about. The reasons that people often don't go for no is that they're too busy protecting themselves and coming up with what they believe are all these justifications and all these reasons. Oh, they won't do it. They don't have the time. They would never spend this much money. They would never spend the money that it takes to get the starter kit. They would never spend that. And all of that protects us. Why? It's very convenient because then we don't have to go for no. We don't have to be rejected. We don't have to have any awkwardness. But these are the reasons we need to reach out to people. Okay, so this brings us to another core go for no concept. No doesn't mean never, no means not yet. These are really fun persistence statistics I'm going to share with all of you. 44% of people give up after one no. 22% more give up after a second no. 14% more give up after the third no. 12% more give up after the fourth no. That means if you add all that up, that means that 92% of people give up before getting a fifth no. Yet the research project that this came from suggested that 60% of all customers say no 4 times before finally saying yes. So what does that mean for persistence? It means sometimes we're going to hear no in your business. You're going to hear no oftentimes from the same person over and over and over. You probably said no a couple times, right? You had your reasons. You weren't ready. You didn't trust the product yet. You didn't know about the company. It just took some time. Something in your mind changed. Something changed for you. You were finally ready. We never know what that is for people. That's why we have to stay persistent with them, gently persistent, positively persistent, not badgering people, but saying, hey, we've got this new thing. Thought you might want to hear about it. Hey, you're not going to believe it. They're finally sending us on a trip, right? Maybe next year when we're all down, not locked down, right? We get to go on the trip. This is the rewards that I got this month. This happened, that happened. Just wanted you to know about it. Those are the things that we use to follow up with those people because they need time to build trust and faith and to finally make the change. It takes them a lot of courage to make the change. So that means you've got to stay persistent. One no from someone doesn't mean they don't want to do the business ever. No, that's just the beginning of the process. That's just the surface level beginning. So Richard is going to tell all of you a little bit about the comfort zone and its relationship to this process. Before we get into that, there is a spot on your handout for you to just do a little self-scoring reality check. Just do that little reality check and see where you are. What is your current quit number? So I just ran through some numbers, right? That so many people give up. They give up after the first no, 44%. They give up after the second, the third. What is your quit number 1 through 10? Or are you even beyond that? Have you contacted people over 10 times? I guarantee you that the top leaders hear no a lot and they contact people all the time and they are 10 plus. So what is your quit number? Write that down because that will also give you that benchmark to get started. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Richard for comfort zone.
Absolutely. One of my absolute favorite topics of this entire program is the idea of your comfort zone. Years ago, I was lucky enough to meet a man named Jim Newman. Jim Newman wrote a book called Release Your Brakes. And Jim Newman was the guy who invented the phrase comfort zone. And what Jim explained to me was the comfort zone got its start in the air conditioning, in the heating and air conditioning trade. And if you can imagine setting your thermostat right on the wall, you set it to like 72 degrees. Well, if it gets below 70 degrees, it's too cold, so the heat kicks on. And if it gets over 74 degrees, it's too warm, so the air kicks on. That range from 70 to 74 for most people, temperature-wise, is their comfort zone. Well, we also have a personal comfort zone. And our comfort zone really is the stuff that we are familiar with, right? Well, let me tell you a couple stories here that I think will kind of, they might surprise you and maybe they might upset you. And they also might make you take a little bit of a look at yourself, because I'll tell you, they certainly made me take a look at myself. One is the idea of fleas. You know that if you take fleas and you put them in a jar and you put the lid on, you know how fleas jump, right? Fleas will jump like mad. Well, the fleas will jump and they'll jump and hit the lid of the jar, and they'll come down, they'll hit the lid of the jar, and hit the lid of the jar again and again and again and again, hundreds of times, until eventually they learn where the lid is. And then they jump just short of the top of the jar, just short of the lid. And when they start jumping just short of the lid, you can unscrew the top and take it off, and they never jump out, because that's their comfort zone. They've learned now that if they jump too high, it's uncomfortable. You know how they train elephants in the circus? When the elephants are babies, when the elephants are young, they will take a baby elephant and they will take a big metal spike and a big metal chain, and they hook it around the elephant's ankle, and they drive the spike into the ground. And there's no way for the baby elephant to pull that spike out of the ground. It will go around in circles, it will pull on the chain, but eventually it learns just how far it can go. Well, later when the elephants are adults, you know, they can take an adult elephant, wrap a rope around it with a little wooden stick and drive that stick in the ground. And the adult elephant could pull that stick out of the ground immediately, but they don't, because they were trained when they were young that this is their comfort zone. One of the most amazing stories I've ever heard, this research project in Canada. Canadian scientists took pike and they put them in a large aquarium, and then they put minnows in the aquarium. And minnows, by the way, are the favorite food of the pike. And the pike would just go gobble these minnows up, right? Well, they then took the pike, they put it on one side of the aquarium, and they put a glass partition in. And they put the minnows on the other side of the aquarium. And the pike would swim and just wham, go right into the glass partition again and again and again. And you know how they knew when they had broken the pike's spirit? The pike would just start swimming in circles. And once it started swimming in circles, they could lift the glass partition out of the aquarium, and the minnows would stay on one end and the pike would stay on the other, because the pike had conditioned itself that it wasn't allowed to go on the other side of the aquarium. These are all amazing examples of the comfort zone. We all have a comfort zone, something that we are comfortable with, and it's extremely hard to break out of the comfort zone. In order to break out of the comfort zone, to go from this familiar, comfortable place into an area where things are unfamiliar and uncomfortable, it requires that you drag yourself out of the comfort zone. Now, I would like to tell you that your leaders in your organization will drag you out of your comfort zone, and I hope they do. I hope they work at that. And I hope that you, when you're a leader, are also dragging people outside of their comfort zones. But you know what? It's not someone else's responsibility to drag you out of your comfort zone. It's your responsibility to drag yourself out of your own comfort zone. And what's amazing about the comfort zone is that when you get into an area of discomfort and you will just hold yourself there long enough, then it starts to be comfortable. And in that moment, your comfort zone will have expanded. Now, the problem that a lot of people have when they think about the comfort zone is the minute that they try to get out of their comfort zone, the anxiety is so great that you kind of like, it's almost like you feel like you're going to panic. And if you're too far pulled out of your comfort zone, it's what we call the panic zone. If you ask somebody to do something that's way too far beyond their comfort zone, they will panic. And panic's not a good thing. But a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of nervousness, like Andrea told the story about her approaching Deborah Maston. I'm going to tell you something. I have never been so proud of her as when she did that and she told me that story, because it was uncomfortable. It was outside of her comfort zone. She was a little bit afraid. There was anxiety. And our business grew out of the fact that she was willing to get outside of her comfort zone. We all have to get outside of our comfort zones. And the answer here is get yourself outside of your comfort zone, hold yourself as long as you can in the area of discomfort, and then let yourself go back in the comfort zone. The comfort zone is not a place to live in. It's a place to rest in. If you're living in your comfort zone, then your world and your possibilities are shrinking around you. If you are expanding your comfort zone by allowing yourself to get into some situations that are uncomfortable and create some anxiety, now your comfort zone is expanding. Nobody is suggesting that you should put yourself into the panic zone overnight. Just expand it a little bit, hold yourself there a little bit, and then let yourself move back in. You see the weights on the screen here? This is how you build muscle. You build courage muscle by moving yourself outside of your comfort zone and then resting after you lift the muscle by letting yourself go back into the comfort zone. Once you expand your comfort zone, it becomes easier and easier and easier, and eventually your comfort zone is twice the size, 3 times the size. And quite frankly, that's where the magic happens.
Awesome. That is our goal. Get outside the comfort zone. So I'm going to bring us home with we're going to talk about selling. We're going to just talk about selling. I know that sometimes that gives people anxiety. Speaking of comfort zone and anxiety, people say, I don't want to be a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to be a salesperson. We are all salespeople. We all sell. And so we're going to have this conversation. I'm going to show you some models, though, so that we get rid of the fear that we're going to do something pushy, aggressive, or be one of the horrible salespeople that nobody wants, right? That's the one thing that we don't want to do or don't want to be. We don't want to be that pushy, aggressive salesperson that drives people crazy. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. So our final Go for No reality check, and I won't ask you to share this in the chat, but just write down your definition of selling. And maybe it's kind of just a couple words like, helping people make a decision, or providing people with products that help their lives. What's your definition of selling? I'm just going to throw that out because that's kind of the beginning for this conversation. And then I want to talk about 2 primary concerns that drive most sales behavior. And here's what the concerns are. One is results, right? We want the yeses. And the second concern is that we also want to build relationships. One of the biggest pushbacks that I think we hear about Go for No is that people fear being pushy or aggressive. They want to maintain relationships. It is one of the reasons why this pandemic has been so challenging and devastating, I think, for all of us, because we are collaborative. We're used to being together. We're used to being in groups. We're used to live programs, and especially in network marketing, we're used to meeting people and getting together for training, but also just literally meeting people. So we're missing this relationship building, right? We're not getting those relationships built. And those are our 2 primary concerns, is we want to have these intact relationships and friendships, and we want people to like us, but also we want results, right? We want to be successful. We want to have the good things in life. We want to travel, and we want to do things for others. So let's talk about how these 2 concerns end up developing into 4 selling styles and which you need to be. We've got this little selling styles matrix here. And if you look at this matrix, you see that results and relationships are plotted on a graph. And you've got relationships from low to high, and you've got results from low to high. And if you think of a style that has a concern about maintaining, getting good results, and they also really don't care about relationships, this is a style that we refer to, kind of funny, as a shark, right? This is a style, this is a person who, they want results. They want to go for no, they want to go for yes, they want to go for whatever. Give me your money, sign up today. That's a shark, right? That's what we call it. That's it's the adversary position. And then you take, and the sharks are very obvious. And unfortunately, the sharks have done the most damage in the world of sales. That's why no one wants to be seen as a salesperson, is because everybody thinks that if you're in sales, immediately you must be a shark. Only sharks survive in sales, right? You go into a car dealer here in America. I don't know if it's the same in the UK, because I've never bought a car in the UK, but here at the car dealerships, the reputation is horrible. You walk onto a car dealer lot and it's all sharks, and they're all swimming, literally swimming around, you know, and they're there to sell you a car, and they want to sell it that day, and you know it, and you can feel that pressure. So none of us wants to be that shark. But then think about the person who has a high concern for building relationships, and as much as they want results, they have a lower concern for results. This is a style that we call the retriever. This is like your classic man's best friend dog, fetches, right? Or great order taker. Somebody calls and they say, hey, I want to place this order, or I'm ready to join. And the retriever helps them, and they're great at building relationships. They want people to have a good experience. They're the people that they go to all the meetings, they do all the training, they are very enthusiastic, they are very friendly, customers love them. But retrievers have a problem. And the retriever's biggest problem, you probably can imagine what it is, but I'll tell you, the retriever's biggest fear, really, is that they look like a shark. So the retriever does everything they can to not look like a shark. Like the retriever will say, you know, I'm not a salesperson. Oh, I'm not one of those horrible sharks. And they will, if there's a line that they fear to cross, you know, the shark is always crossing the line. The retriever is never crossing the line. They never want to have anybody upset, because they care so much about relationships, and they believe that sometimes sales is really lose-win. Sometimes they have to lose and the customer wins, right? And that just means that they don't sell anything, and that's okay with them. So the retrievers got kind of this messed up mindset. They're not looking at things in the right way because they're so blinded. They're blinded by not wanting to be the shark. And then you have somebody who I know nobody on this training falls into this category. This is the category that cares about nothing. They're apathetic. The model that we always have in our head is like a hippo, like just somebody who they lounge around. You know, if the shark is swimming fast in the water to catch its next prey, the hippo's lounging around and doesn't really care. They don't care about relationships. They don't care about results. And they don't last very long in the direct selling or network marketing industry at all. You know when you deal with a hippo. Let me tell you that you know. And this is obviously not a physical description. We're talking about people's like mindset, their attitude. And so finally, when you look at all of this and you say, well, what style has a high concern for results, but also a high concern for relationships? This is a style that we, in our minds, we call this the lion. That's the style that we call. And the reason we picked the animal of the lion was very intentional. The reason we picked lion was because a lion is a symbol. And if any of you ever saw The Wizard of Oz, you will remember that a lion, the cowardly lion, actually was the one who had the courage in him all along. And courage is totally associated with lions, king of the jungle. Courageous is the essence of what a lion is. That is the whole idea behind Go for No, is having the courage to get outside your comfort zone, to ask when it's not comfortable, to approach people. The lion always sees things as win-win. It's not about the shark. If the shark is, you know, I win always, and I don't care about you, you could lose, whatever. And the retriever's like, the retriever comes from it like, I'm almost begging, and I don't want to look like the shark, and I sometimes will lose. But the lion is always win-win. The lion comes at it and says, I'm not going to prejudge. I'm going to offer the best of what we have and let you tell me no rather than me give myself the no. So our goal ultimately with Go for No is to turn people and to help people turn themselves into lions, to break through those comfort zones, break through all of the messages that we've all been taught and trained over the years about failure and rejection and success, and become lions. That is the goal with this training, because lions are where it's at. That is where the magic happens. Go for No can be used as a tool. It can be used as a tool for good, or it could be used as a tool for evil, right? We want to use it as a tool for good. And how do we do that? We do that very simply by always sharing everything that's in our prospects and our customers' best interest and letting them make the decision, not selling from our own wallets, not prejudging, not deciding that we're just, not going to share this information, but we're going to be lions. So that really is the goal. So when you think about this and you kind of cross-reference this against the reality check that we did, look at your definition of selling, and answers that are exclusively results-oriented are going to be more shark-like. Answers that are more relationship-oriented, like a total shark example would be like selling is convincing people to buy, right? Just like you feel like as a shark, you have to manipulate people. Answers that are relationship-oriented are usually great answers, but it's helping people, or it's giving great service, and it's never about them maximizing their potential from a sales standpoint. So answers that contain both are what we're looking for, right, with Lion. And of course, answers that are completely apathetic, I know we don't have any of those here, so it's basically irrelevant. So our goal really is to have what we call a to sell is to serve attitude. That sales is not a four-letter word, that there's nothing wrong with quote, selling your opportunity. There's nothing wrong with selling products when we're always doing it and asking great questions and marrying that person with great products or our business opportunity. It is a complete and total win-win. I also, the quintessential Go for No salesperson or lion goes for no a lot. They hear no a lot. They just don't let it stop them. They don't take it personally, and they just understand that it is part of the process. So Richard is going to wrap up with a final story. I think you told everybody about your dad a little bit in the beginning. So we're going to wrap up with the story, and then we're going to do some Q&A.
So I alluded to the fact that I left Chicago because my sales were not exactly what they should have been, but I didn't fully tell you the real complete story. The complete story is that my father was a sales legend in the automotive fleet industry. That's the sale of corporate cars to leasing companies and rent-a-car companies, that kind of thing. And after a couple of years, he called me in to tell me that I was going into sales, but he never really gave me any sales training. And that's why I left Chicago. I left Chicago because I didn't think I could sell to the level that my father had. I didn't feel that I could get out of my father's sales legend shadow. And that caused me to move all the way to Los Angeles and to leave the car business. Well, I want to kind of tell you the end of the story here, because I think the end of the story really goes to the point of what it means to be a sales lion. So I'm living in Los Angeles now. It's a number of years later. Andrea and I have met and we're married, and we're on a weekend trip to Santa Barbara, California, a little area about 100 miles north of LA. We'd just gotten in, parked the car, went into the hotel, checked in, and we went upstairs. We had just set our luggage down and the phone rang. And I, said, oh, I know who that's going to be. It's my dad. because my dad called like every day. And Andrea answers the phone and says, "Hey, how you doing?" And it wasn't my father, it was my brother. And my brother said, "I have some bad news to tell you." And she's like, "What?" And he said, "Dad just died. It was a car accident. He was on a sales trip doing what he loved more than anything in the world. He was out selling. He was with my mother. They were in Seattle, Washington. And we still don't know exactly what happened. Somehow or other, he drove through a guardrail and down an embankment and died on impact. My mother survived, and quite the miracle, I will tell you. And so we raced back to Los Angeles. We hopped on an airplane and we flew up to Seattle. We didn't get up there until midnight. And we got off the airplane and we were I was so shell shocked. I was just, trying to wrap my brain around what was happening, that I hadn't even realized that we didn't have a hotel room. And Andrea said, "Well, where are we going to stay?" And I said, "I know where my dad always stayed when he was up here. I'll bet you he has a hotel room." And we drove to that hotel. Andrea parked out front. I went inside. I told the man at the desk who I was and what had happened, and asked if they had a Don Fenton registered. And absolutely, he did. That's where my father and mother were staying. So he cut us a key. And you have to imagine how kind of eerie and weird this was. Here's Andrea and I going up into the room, and we walk into the room, and there are the clothes hanging in the closet and all of the toiletries sitting by the sink. And over on the desk was all of my dad's sales materials. And he had everything in three very distinct stacks. He had his day planner, which he had all of his calls organized for the next week. And then he had a stack of manila file folders, and it was all of the clients, all of the customers that he took care of, and there was a file on each one. And then there was also a stack of, I guess what you could call little giveaway items, refrigerator magnets and pens and coffee mugs, stuff like that. And I opened up my dad's day planner and I looked on Monday morning and I saw the name of the client. And then I looked at the stack of manila file folders and there was the client's thing on top. I realized, oh, he had them all organized in the order he was going to call on them. And I opened up the manila file folder, and what I expected to see was the name of the client and how many cars they bought and how much they paid for each car and how quickly they paid and all of that kind of stuff. And that wasn't what was in the folder at all. What was in the folder was the name of the client and the name of his wife and the name of the restaurant my father had taken the two of them to the last time he had been in town, and what he ordered for dinner and how he ordered the food, whether he liked it medium rare or medium, and how she ordered her food. And then under that was the name of the man's assistant and what restaurant my dad had taken her to lunch at and what she ordered for lunch. And it went like that, page after page after page of personal information. Now, my dad was the #1 salesman in the history of General Motors, but he got something that most salespeople don't get, and that's that selling is a personal endeavor. That yes, you have to ask customers to buy, and going for no is important, and no one went for no like my dad did. My dad was relentless. When he knew that he had something that would benefit you, he was tenacious and never quit. But he also understood that it was all about relationships. And when we got to Chicago for the funeral, 2,000 people attended the funeral. These were, I guess, probably a couple hundred friends and probably 300 people or so from the church. And the other 1,500 were all customers of his that had flown to Chicago for no other reason than to say goodbye to a man who sold cars for a living. You can be a car salesperson and you can be a shark. Or you can be a car salesperson and be a retriever and just show the car but never ask someone to buy. Or you can be a lion and you can get people to buy what you have and have it be right for them. And that's what my father lived. That's how he did business. And I'm standing in line at the funeral, at the wake, and a man comes through the line and he says, "Richard, you don't know me." He goes, "But I was one of your father's customers." And he said, "I want to tell you a story." He said, "Your dad called on me many, many years ago. And he called on me for years and years and years. And I said, no, 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 no. And then finally, he said, finally one day he called on me and he said, "Listen, Bob, just buy one car." And I thought, you know what? This kid's been calling on me 4 times a year for 10 years. The least I can do is buy one car. And he said, "I bought one car from your dad." And he did such a beautiful job. I thought, I'm going to order more. And then he ordered 10, and he ordered 50, and then he ordered 25% of the fleet. And he said, eventually, he had all of my business. And he said, "I'm not telling you this for any other reason than to say thank you, because your dad never gave up on me." That's what selling can be. That's what Go for No can be if you decide to make it a mission instead of just a technique or a strategy. It can be something that literally changes lives. And I hope that for all of you, you have that same type of success, because it can be really magical. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Oh my goodness, it is a hard story for us to tell. Hard story for us to tell because, as you can imagine, it was a devastating time, but he left a great legacy. So for that, we're grateful. So we want to now, through Wes and through the chat, open it up, because now is your chance. We love Q&A. It's your chance to ask us anything about what we have covered, or perhaps what we haven't covered, and Richard and I can answer your questions.
Great. Okay. Well, we already have some questions, and by the way,
Right.
thank you so much for a fantastic second half as well, and what a brilliant story to end on as well, which I'm sure we'll all remember. Thank you for sharing that, Richard. We've already got a couple of questions come through in advance. So here's an interesting one. It's from Noel Austin. He says he has no problem with individual no's, but he struggles when he has a long string of them. So have you got any advice or insights on that?
Oh, individual no's as compared to just a long, so obviously just being in a slump, right? That's just being in this, yeah. It's tough statistically. Like, you look at baseball players who sometimes get in a slump and they cannot get a hit, no matter, they just continue strike out and strike out and strike out. And it really, I think it can shatter your belief in yourself. I think it impacts your belief in your product and your customers. So a couple things. I think it's really important to go back and actually, I would say, talk to, and I've actually heard this advice from other people, and I think it's brilliant. Sometimes we need to get that reinforcement again, that of the successes that we've had, right? It would be the equivalent of if we wanted to remember like a really successful speech, thinking back to a time where, you know, we did a really good job. Tony Robbins actually talks about this. It's kind of part of, I think, NLP. It's like neuro-linguistic programming. It's thinking about a time that you were really successful, Noel. And so that's my advice. And Richard, you might have something to add, is to go back and revisit those successes. And that might look like you actually contacting and reaching out to current customers and having a conversation, and remember, reinvigorate those relationships that you've had. That will help you, I think, get your confidence back during that slump, because we all have those slumps.
Yeah, and I would add this. We have a good friend in the sales training business here in the States named Lisa Jimenez. And Lisa's come up with a very clever way of keeping herself motivated. she did a calculation where she figured out that every time she made a sale, she made $500. Every time she got a yes, it was worth $500 to her. And you can imagine how this puts you on an emotional roller coaster, right? Where every time she hears no, she's going down and down and down and down, and she's getting further down and further down and further down, hoping that she can get that yes, so she can get the emotional high of the yes. What she realized was she had to equal it out. She had to get in that neutral zone. So she did some research and she found out that her closing ratio was 1 out of every 10. She had a 10% closing ratio. So in other words, for every 10 calls she made, she got 1 sale. So she took the $500 she made every time she got a yes, she divided it by 10, and she realized that every answer, whether someone said yes to her or whether they said no to her, was worth $50. And she took a $50 bill and she taped it to her telephone to remind her that every time she dialed the phone, she was making $50. And she would dial the phone and she'd get a no, and she'd say, thank you very much. And she'd hang up and she'd say, thanks for the $50. Because you have to reprogram yourself to realize that no's have value too. And you need to celebrate the no's when you hear them. And you need to realize that every time you get the no, you're making money. And this is the other thing that Andrea mentioned, the emotional roller coaster. And when you finally get that yes, don't go wild, don't celebrate, don't do the big dance or something. Hang up the phone and say, thanks for the $50. Because the yeses are worth no more than the no's are.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Lots of questions coming through. We're going to try and get to obviously lots of them, but I'm going to pick on the ones that have come through 2 or 3 times from different. So one that's just come through probably 3 times now is pretty similar lines here. Would you say that going for no psychologically actually makes you look and feel less desperate, therefore meaning you come across with more posture, hence you end up getting more yeses?
Absolutely. And that's a really interesting thing. The more that you go for yes, the more desperate you look sometimes, because you go into the sale like, I've got to get this person to say yes. I need to do whatever it takes to get them to say yes. And instead, if you go in with this go for no attitude, because that's a great question, and you go in saying, listen, I'm going to present the product, I'm going to present the service, I'm going to present the opportunity and explain all the reasons why they should buy. And then instead of pushing and leaning forward, I'm going to lean back, and if it's right, it's right. And if it's not, it's not. Because you know what? Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. I'm going to move on if this doesn't work out. And what's fascinating is the more...
Oh, that's my phone.
Oh, it's a telephone. The more that you pull away from someone, the more drawn to you they are. And so you're right that when you push, you look desperate. But when you don't look desperate and you're willing to hear the word no, people are more drawn into you. So it's a great question, and I believe you're absolutely correct. Yeah,
great question. Thank you for that. Now I've brought my dog in, one of my dogs in, especially for this. Dog related. All right, no kissing. At least 2, in fact 3 people now have asked, basically, what's a strategy to move from being a retriever to a lion?
Yeah, I mean, I think it requires you to remember your mission and what you're trying to accomplish. And so sometimes when people struggle and they kind of lose their way, it's because they're not remembering how it is that their product and they themselves personally can change someone's life. And oftentimes, and I've talked to people in our coaching group about this, we give people one exercise to do, which is 1, write down the 10 reasons why someone should work and do business with you, like the value that you bring. That's the one thing. Because a retriever is really just an order taker. They're so afraid of being that shark that they never allow themselves the opportunity to grow from retriever into lion. And so they have to remember their value personally, And also remember what it is that they're doing with their products and services, because they need to get that to sell is to serve mindset.
Right. And I think retrievers have an issue. There's a stigma that they have around the word selling. When they think of the word sales, they think to sell is to manipulate. And if you're thinking to sell is to manipulate, then you think that all selling is about being a shark. You have to start telling yourself to sell is to serve. To sell is to serve. And if you can get to that point as a retriever, suddenly the light bulb goes on and you go, oh my God, to not sell is to not serve. To actually have the right product or the right service or the right opportunity and know that it's right and not offer it and not ask for the sale, not ask for somebody to join, whatever that is a disservice to that person. And so you can move yourself from this manipulation feeling over to the service side.
Great stuff. Okay, one that's come through a couple of times now. And again, this might vary on the type of business or what you're talking to people about, but do you have any particular views on an acceptable time frame between asking people to take another look?
Oh yeah, acceptable time frame. You know, it really depends. I mean, people always ask us this question. It's very, very popular. You know, how persistent should I be? And obviously, if somebody is interested initially, there's that period where you want to really stay in contact and you probably follow up with them a lot, right? A lot initially. And then it kind of goes from, okay, if they aren't getting back to you and maybe you didn't even get a no, you just didn't get a response. We usually suggest, and a lot of people in the training world suggest kind of a formal, I never have a better word to say it than break up email or break up voicemail, where you say, hey, you know, I've reached out a few times. You seemed really interested. I feel like this business would be great for you, or this product could really help you. But I've checked in with you several times. So, and our co-author Ray Higdon of the Go for No for Network Marketing book always says, you know, he'll say, but you know, I'm really busy, and so unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to continue contacting you, but if you're still interested, please give me a call back. I'm happy to help you. And then you kind of let it go, but you don't let it go forever, right? Because you do want to check back with them. So I think our rule of thumb is about every 10 to 12 weeks. It's long enough to see, to ask the question and to be able to check in with people and to say, hey, I was just thinking about you because, or I'm reaching out to you today just to see if anything's changed. I know last time, you know, you never ended up getting the product, or you didn't end up joining our business, but it's been a couple months and I just wanted to see if anything has changed.
Yeah, that's a great line. I'm just touching base to see if anything has changed. A lot of people think that follow-up has to be a full sales call. There's got to be a full presentation. It doesn't. It's enough for you to renew the relationship, to remind people, and for you to own a little bit of real estate in their head, so that if and when things do change, they remember who you are and what it is that you have to offer. We've had calls where we've called our, you know, somebody been calling on for years sometimes. Hey, just touching base to see if anything's changed. No, it hasn't. Okay, great. Keep us in mind. Click. 15-second phone call. Andrea just closed somebody that she'd been making 15-second phone calls to. How many years?
It's our longest time ever, 16 years.
16 years. She'd been calling on this company once every 90 days for 16 years. And some of those conversations, most of them were less than a minute long. But now they're ready. And now they remember who she is because she kept calling them. So call often enough so that you can keep the relationship alive. That's the answer.
Great stuff, great stuff. And as of course, we've seen in the last 15 months, a lot of people's circumstances will have changed and are likely to change, you know, again, as the world goes back to whatever normal is, and the economy probably explodes at the same time. One question that's come through a couple of times now, in fact, Stav's just sent this through written quite well here, actually. He says, you know, in our type of business, obviously a lot of people are part-time or even less than part-time, time to time. So those people obviously may not go for as many no's because they've got less time. Therefore, they're going to get less yeses overall because of the numbers that they're doing. So have you got any advice for those type of people on keeping focused versus the more full-time salespeople?
You know, my advice to anybody, you can go for no, like when we were talking about setting no goals at any level, at any number that you want. I think for somebody that has a limited amount of time though, my advice is actually a little bit different. And that is make go for no your absolute priority. When you're in business full-time, if you're a full-time network marketer, there's a lot of stuff that you can do to expand your business. You could, you know, here in the US, a lot of people go to like trade show type things, or they put their products out. It gives them an opportunity to talk to people, back when we used to do that, but I'm sure it'll come back. You know, they do parties, they do social media, they do TikTok videos, they do Facebook lives, they're on Twitter, they're on all the social media, right? Focus in on the absolute activity that moves your business forward, and that is go for no, without letting yourself get distracted with all of the things that you could do that you see a full-time network marketer do, that you think, oh, I should do that, and oh, I need to be on Facebook, and I need to have, you know, I need to be making a TikTok video every 6 hours. No, list your go for no moments. Remember what I talked about with no goals from beginning to end. Where are all the places that you can get no? And if you had 5 minutes a day or 1 hour a week, I would say, reach out to a couple people and go for no as much as you can through those go for no moments and execute on that. And you could be as effective as some people who are full-time.
Great stuff. Thank you for that. Okay, well, I'm very conscious of time, yours as well, and respectful of everyone's time here. We did say we would be closing up at 9:30, so I think we've got most of the questions that came in more than once there. So thank you for an incredible try. I'm going to open up the chat now, so if people want to share their thanks and their thoughts, then of course they can do so there. Now, Paolo, I'm going to hand back to you if you've got any kind of closing comments from the Knowledge is King. If you just click the unmute button that should have popped up on your screen. There you go.
I did. Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks, Richard, Andrea. That was amazing. Very good. Excellent. Wes, thanks for hosting. And before you go, we've put together two special bundles on our website. If you haven't got Go for No, we put Go for No and 79 Tips by Wes together. You get the prospecting CD for free. That's £20 special instead of 30. And there's another bundle there as well with Go for No for network marketing. So have a look at those special this evening. And yeah, once again, thanks very much for everyone for supporting us.
Paolo, great to have you with us, and as of course I'd always say, there is of course a limited supply of those books, and when they're gone, there's another limited supply in the box underneath the table. Listen, ladies and gents, great to have you with us this evening. This, of course, for many people will be part of a two-part event because we have the consistency chain guys coming up in the coming weeks, and you'll be getting the details through from Paolo and Barry about that. So you can log in. If, of course, you haven't booked for that, then you can find the details on the website. But it only remains for me to say that Richard and Andrea, as always, it's a pleasure to see you. Hope we get to see each other face to face soon again. But really great to have you with us. Some just compelling stories and ideas, and concepts that will just stay with everyone as they grow their business, going for no. So thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. Our pleasure.